The Nintendo Virtual Boy is one of the biggest flops in Nintendo's history, in their storied history. Today, I'm going to take a look at the Virtual Boy in every single game. Let's take a look. So before we actually play the games, let's just take a real quick look at this thing. I mean, I don't know what Nintendo was thinking. This is one of the weirdest designs of any kind of video game contraption I've ever seen, let alone coming from Nintendo. I know that they were trying to cash in on the whole virtual reality craze in the mid-90s, but man, this design is just so weird. And it is weird to play. I mean, how do you play it? It needs a head strap. I hate to repeat the angry video game nerd here, but it begs for a head strap. When you are playing it on a desk or a table or something, you kind of have to crouch down and play it. It is so uncomfortable. This thing is not comfortable at all to play. Now, one thing that this thing is known for and is famous for is if you play it for too long, you might get a headache. Nintendo actually had to put a warning on the Virtual Boy box to tell people about that and how it might strain your eyes and you might get migraines from it. So yeah, kind of weird. Very strange, and there's no wonder why this thing failed, okay? So let's take a look at the controller next. Let's take a real quick look at the controller itself. Now, this thing is actually pretty revolutionary, and I'll get to that here in a second. But one thing I want to point out, when you were playing the Virtual Boy, you had to have either an AC adapter or a battery pack here. I've actually seen numerous Virtual Boy controllers out in the wild without this, and it takes 6 AA batteries. And I don't know the battery life of the Virtual Boy. I've never had like a marathon session with the Virtual Boy because I don't want to hurt my eyes, and quite frankly, it's not that fun. It's kind of an oddity more than anything. But if you're going to track one down, make sure you have this pack. Now, the controller is actually pretty neat. This is probably the best thing about the Virtual Boy. I love the dual D-pads here. It's kind of revolutionary. It's kind of standard for controllers now. And at the time, you really didn't have this. And quite frankly, this kind of feels like a PlayStation 4 controller, except for the grooves here in the bottom. You're going to have 2 trigger buttons on the back. And again, it's kind of similar to a PlayStation 4 controller. Start, select, A, B. And the controls for the games are really simple. And you're not going to get too sophisticated with it. So yeah, that's kind of why it's a simple layout. And I love these double D-pads. Let's take a real quick look at the games, and then we'll play the games. So I don't have a huge Virtual Boy library. I only have 6 games. Really 7. I'll explain that here in a second. This is what the games look like, and this is probably the killer app, if you will, for the Virtual Boy, Wario Land. And it's really good, really fun, and it plays just like a traditional Wario Land game. And I might as well just show off my collection. Mario Tennis, a very common game, and I have the Japanese version in my Virtual Boy right now. And that's another thing to point out. The Virtual Boy is not region locked, so you can play Japanese games on it, and that's pretty neat. Golf. Galactic Pinball. Red Alarm. And good old Virtual League Baseball. So yeah, that's my collection. I'm not going for a complete Virtual Boy set. There are not a whole lot of games on there, but there are a few games that are very valuable and hard to track down. Jack Brothers, for example, oh boy, it is expensive and hard to find. Okay, let's play some games, finally. Before we delve into the entire Virtual Boy library, I wanted to give you guys a first-person point of view of the Virtual Boy in action. Now, it does not give a full virtual experience, but the effect itself is pretty cool. You have to try it yourself to get the full effect. But I wanted to show you guys an actual Virtual Boy in action before we get started. First up is 3D Tetris. And if you are a Virtual Boy collector, this one is actually getting up there in price. A loose copy is running anywhere from $100 to about $90. And yeah, it's okay. It's alright for what it is. And if you know Tetris, it's Tetris, but it's trying to be Tetris in a three-dimensional space. And the controls are weird, the camera is strange, and it is just so slow and clunky feeling. I would rather be playing the original Tetris, and we'll get back to Tetris later in the video. And if I was a hardcore Tetris fan, which I love Tetris, don't get me wrong, maybe I would try it out. Maybe I'd give it a whirl, but man, it is just clunky as all get out, and you will be frustrated with the camera. It tries its best to move and to show you where the actual blocks are going to be on the board there, but it is not fun. It is not Tetris that we all know and love. And do I recommend playing this game? Maybe one time if you are curious and out of curiosity, but it's not worth tracking down for about $100 unless you're going for a complete set. I understand that. My Nintendo 64 set has a lot of clunkers in it, and I have a complete collection, so I get it. But again, maybe try it once or twice and then be done with the thing. So pass it up or just add it in the collection. Galactic Pinball, a pinball game on the Virtual Boy? Really? What was Nintendo thinking, honestly? Now, there are 3 boards you can choose from and play on. I'm only going to play on one, the Cosmic board. And before I actually talk about the game itself, one thing I'm going to bring up about the Virtual Boy that's a very common complaint. The Virtual Boy doesn't really offer a virtual reality experience. It just offers very shallow 3D effects. Now, there's 3 or 4 games that have a first-person point of view that is virtual reality-like, but still, it's not a virtual reality experience. Now, this game is going to have shallow 3D effects. Now, does that take away from the fun factor? Absolutely not. And the game itself is a blast. I had a ton of fun with this, more than expected. Maybe my expectations were really low for this one, but again, I couldn't stop playing it. And I love virtual pinball in general. I love pinball video games, if that makes any sense. And this one's actually really, really easy. But if a game is really easy, it doesn't mean it's not fun. It doesn't take away from the fun factor. And you'll have a lot of fun discovering all three boards and what they do, and there are different mechanics for each board. Now, one thing that's kind of cool with the Virtual Boy controller, with the actual flippers, you use the two back triggers on the controller in order to control the actual flippers, which is a neat effect. It's almost like playing pinball, if you will, and you can also use the D-pads too. So I really do recommend that you play this game a few times, and it's pretty addictive. Just to be completely fair, I couldn't stop playing it. So check it out if you can. Golf. Yeah, just golf. Really, golf. Now, I'm not the biggest golf fan in the world, and I'm really not the biggest golf video game fan in the world. And if you want to play some hot garbage, some hot trash, here you go. There are a lot better golf games out there than this. Play Golden Tee at your local arcade, or play Fred Couples Golf on the 32X. You're going to have a much better experience. Now, it's not awful, terrible, but man, if you're actually playing this thing on the Virtual Boy, you're going to murder your eyes. The graphics are atrocious. I'd rather be playing golf on the Game Boy than this. I'd rather be playing the original golf on the NES or even on the Atari 2600 than this garbage. It's alright though. I'm trying not to bash it too hard, but you have to consider if you're playing this on the original hardware or not. And it's gonna hurt your eyes and eventually your head. So I would say steer clear of this game. It's not very good. And there are a lot better golf experiences out there. This is a Japanese exclusive for the Virtual Boy. Insu Mouse no Yakata? I believe that's how you say it. Let me know down in the comments below if I got it wrong. Now this is a perfect game for the Virtual Boy. It's a first-person perspective, and it's a dungeon crawler maze type game. Now you have to pick up keys and orbs, and you can also get extra hearts for life here. And I'm not really sure what to do here. Now you can also get ammo and other things too. And again, I'm not sure exactly what's happening in this game, but there's not a big language barrier here for you to play the game itself. Now you will encounter enemies along the way, and you just have to shoot at them. And I'm not sure if you can actually aim the cursor or not. I couldn't figure that out. But you are going to progress through the game. It's a maze. And there's a time limit. I'm not really sure why there's a time limit, but I kept running out of time. Now there is a continuation system and there's a password system, so you can try to get further and further into the game. Let me know if you guys have tried this out, and I think it's really, really cool to play this in the Virtual Boy perspective. Jack Brothers on the Virtual Boy is the hardest to find game and the rarest game for this system. Now the odd thing is, most rare, hard to find games and expensive games are not the best of quality. This game is a ton of fun and is the exception. I think you're going to enjoy the theme, the Halloween theme, the characters, the horror aspects, and just the overall presentation. The 3D effects are really good here. Now it's a top-down view, and it's a puzzle game, exploration game, action game. You're gonna have a ton of fun with this. Now I really didn't like the hand-holding aspects in the earlier stages, but once you get past that, it's a lot of fun. I love attacking and killing the enemies. I love finding the keys and just making it to the end of each stage, each area. Also, one of my favorite things with this game are the boss battles. The boss battles are just so much fun. I had a blast with Jack Brothers, and I think you will too. You have got to try to track this game down if you can for a cheap price. You gotta play it, and it is probably the best game on the system, in my opinion. Now you might say, well, what about Wario? That's an excellent game too, and we'll get to it. But in my opinion, this is one of the best games for the Virtual Boy. If you are playing on a Nintendo console, more than likely you will run across a Mario game at some point in time. This is Mario Clash. It's an arcade style game much like the original Mario Brothers found in the arcades on the NES and the Atari 2600. There are 99 levels to play from, and you can actually skip around and experience levels for yourself. Now, I struggled with this game. Yes, the premise is simple. Kill all the enemies in the stage. There are two planes to deal with here, a foreground and a background, and I struggled with having to aim my shells at enemies back and forth between the two planes. Now you can hurl turtle shells into the pipes to attack your enemies, and that is a lot of fun. I struggled with this game, but it's still fun. You need to play it. The arcade aspect is a lot of fun, and it's a Mario game in the same vein as the original Mario Brothers. Now this game is going to run you anywhere between 35 and 40 bucks. So I would say add this to the collection. The price isn't too bad. And just give it a whirl for yourself. See if you can get further than I can and not struggle with the two planes. Mario's Tennis. Now this is the cheapest and most common Virtual Boy game out there. It's going to run you anywhere from 12 bucks to 15 bucks. And it was a pack-in title, so that makes sense. I'm just going to be frank with you guys. I don't like this game at all. I struggle with this game. I like the 3D effects, but I just do not have a good time with this one. There's a lot better tennis experiences out there. There's a lot better Mario Tennis games out there. Just play Mario Tennis 64 and also the one on the GameCube. You will have a much better time than this. I had so much struggle actually returning the ball and hitting the ball. I didn't know where to stand on the court. And I also double faulted a lot. So the controls are just not that good. Also, the character design is not that great in my opinion. And this could have been just plain Jane tennis. There's not that cool Mario sports feel to it, if that makes any sense. It's just tennis. Hitting the ball back and forth. Serving the ball. And it's just not fun. Yeah, it has the Mario characters, but other than that, it's just not special. And sadly, this is probably the Virtual Boy game I played the most for a long time. This was the only Virtual Boy game I owned. And I actually had this game. I had the Japanese version, and I have the American version. And you can track both down for dirt cheap, like I said. Add it to the collection because it's cheap. But you're probably not going to be playing this game a whole lot. Another odd choice by Nintendo here, Nestor's Funky Bowling. If you're not familiar with Nestor, he is a character in Nintendo Power. He was in the comics. So he gets his own game here. That's cool, I guess. And yeah, it's bowling. And there's not much to say. It's bowling. It's kind of like reviewing golf. It's golf. And it has some moments of fun, but man, it is so boring. And I had so much trouble actually picking up spares in this game. And I wasn't able to get one strike at all. And I love getting strikes and say Wii Sports with the bowling. It's so much fun. It's so rewarding. And this game, it just, I wanted to pull my hair out with this game. The graphics are just not that good. I do like the little animations in between each frame after you roll the ball, but it's not special. You could play this game on the Super Nintendo. You could play this game on the Game Boy and still have probably the same amount of fun. Now, this game is going to run you about $50 loose. I don't recommend this bowling game. There's actually one more bowling game on the Virtual Boy that I'm going to talk about that I think is actually pretty fun and you might want to pick up. Panic Bomber. This is a puzzle game. Does this game belong on the Virtual Boy? Not really. I mean, this game you could have played on the Super Nintendo. You could have played this on the Game Boy and would have had just as much fun. The 3D effects here are very weak. And honestly, it doesn't belong on the system. Now, the game itself, does that take away from the game? Not really. This game is highly addictive. It was really hard for me to put down and stop playing. I wanted to keep going on with the stages. There are multiple stages and multiple bosses, if you will. And I wanted to keep going. So you will have fun if you track this game down. It's running anywhere between $35 and $40 depending on where you look. And yeah, I would say add it to the collection if you're a big puzzle hound and if you're a big Bomberman fan. And yeah, the 3D effects, like I said, they just don't do it for me here. Red Alarm. This is a shoot 'em up on rail shooter, kind of like Star Fox. I'm going to get to that here in a second. Now, the graphics are very similar and remind me of the Vectrex, if you will, with vector graphics. At least that's the way it appears. And I had a ton of fun with this one. This was my second Virtual Boy game I ever owned. And I played the living crap out of this game. Now, I really appreciate the first person point of view here. And this particular run I had, man, I did not want to stop playing. I wanted to keep going. Now, there are some struggles you're going to have with this game, like not knowing where the barriers are at in the stage. But for the most part, the game tries its best to show you what you can travel through and what you cannot travel through. I also had a lot of fun with the bosses and just blowing stuff up. Man, I love it. There's also an auto target that is very, very useful for this type of game. Now again, I struggled with bumping into walls and bumping into things, but you can actually slow your speed down or even speed up if you need to. Now this game, to me, should have been a Star Fox game. Now there was a planned Star Fox game for the Virtual Boy that got canceled because the system failed. Now this game is going to run you about 20 bucks loose. And I would say track this down because of the price and just how much fun it is. And it feels like a virtual reality experience. SD Gundam Dimension Wars. This is another Japanese exclusive for the Virtual Boy. I really don't have a whole lot to say about this game. It is pretty poor, and I can see why it didn't come over to the West. Now, it's based off Gundam. I was a huge fan of Gundam back in the day when I was a kid, and this is like a hybrid game. It's a strategy tactical game, kind of like Fire Emblem and Shining Force. But then it goes into this strange attack mode, if you will. So it's kind of a hybrid of an action game and a tactical RPG. And I don't know about this one. I tried it. I tried playing it. It's clunky. And it just doesn't do it for me. The 3D effects are not that good. And I just could not get anywhere with this game. So I understand why it didn't come over here to the United States. Now, if you are going to track it down, it's going for anywhere between 60 and 55 bucks roughly. So yeah, I mean, if you're going for a complete American and Japanese set, I can understand why you would track this down. But even if you're a hardcore Gundam fan, you're not going to enjoy this game. It's very redundant and repetitive. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of strategy to this game. And I don't know if I fully understand how to play this game. It seems like I'm always on the defense more than the attack, even when it's my turn to go. So yeah, there is a language barrier there too to consider. I would just pass this game up entirely. Space Invaders Virtual Collection. This is another Japanese exclusive for the Virtual Boy. What can I say about this game other than it's Space Invaders? I love Space Invaders. I love the arcade game, and I absolutely love the Atari 2600 version. Now there's going to be 3 modes to play here. The virtual 3D mode, which I'm not impressed by the graphics, by the way, the visuals. And then also there's a 2D mode if you want to play the classic Space Invaders, and a challenge mode. Now the cool thing is this game is going to offer Space Invaders 2, which I wasn't too familiar with, and that's a nice touch. Now, I don't recommend tracking this game down unless you're going for a complete Japanese and North American set. It's fun for a few minutes, but there's a lot better ways to play Space Invaders. Telro Boxing. If you want to play one of the definitive Virtual Boy games, this is the game. It uses the strengths of the Virtual Boy very well. The first person point of view, the 3D graphics, all excellent here. Now, is it a perfect game? Absolutely not. There are flaws with this game. First off, it's cheap, and the hit detection is not the best. Now, you are a robot and you're fighting other robots, and it's a lot like Punch-Out, the original Punch-Out that was in the arcades. Now, you can do a lot of cool special moves. There's uppercuts. You can move from left to right. You can bob and weave, if you will. And I do like the effects and the robot animations when you're fighting them. Again, they're just so cheap sometimes, but you're going to have a lot of fun, and dare I say it, it's almost like virtual reality. So check it out. Also, it's only 20 bucks. So add it to your collection if you want one of the best examples of what the Virtual Boy could have been. V Tetris on the Virtual Boy. Another Tetris game on the Virtual Boy. I really don't have much to say about this game. Oddly enough, my favorite part was the music. I really enjoyed the music. Very catchy and upbeat. Almost as good as the original Tetris on the Game Boy. What do I say here? It's Tetris on the Virtual Boy. Just go play it on the Game Boy. Go play it on your TI-99. Go play it on your phone. Download it. Oh, geez. I don't know what else to say. Just don't play it on the Virtual Boy. It's Tetris, for crying out loud. I love Tetris. And I couldn't put this down for a while just because it's Tetris. And if you don't like Tetris, there might be something wrong with you. So let's move on to the next game. Vertical Force. This is a shoot 'em up, and it tries to use the 3D effects of the Virtual Boy. And there's some success here. We'll talk about it. There's some things I like about it, and really there's some things I can do without. Now, you can go from the higher level, which is where you start out, or the lower level. And there's different enemies at each level. And generally speaking, I try to stay at the lower level because there seems to be less enemies there. And I usually don't get killed down there. Now, the things I don't like about this, sometimes it's hard to distinguish what is on what level. Now, you have to pay attention to the shadows. You have to pay attention to the depth. So it does an okay job with the 3D effect. Really, my favorite part of the game were the boss fights. The boss fights were phenomenal, and the boss fights actually use this 3D leveling effect very well. The soundtrack is average for the era. In fact, you can just say, generally speaking, all soundtracks on the Virtual Boy are pretty average, except for V Tetris. That is kicking, man. So yeah, would you play this? Would you track it down, add it to the collection? It's going for about 37 to 40 bucks, roughly, depending on where you look. I don't know. I didn't have a whole lot of fun with this. It didn't seem as fast-paced as a lot of the other shoot-em-ups of the era, but again, the boss fights were a ton of fun. I loved being able to go up and down and figure out how to defeat those bosses. So it's just up to you. If you really like that genre, if you want a different kind of shoot 'em up, then track it down. Virtual Bowling. This game's going to set you back about 75 bucks. Is it worth it adding it to your Virtual Boy collection? Well, I'm going to tell you this. It's better than Nestor's Funky Bowling. Now, you will struggle with the controls a little bit, but it's better than Nestor, for real. I was able to be a little successful and actually get some strikes. And dare I say it, it was kind of fun. Now, is it actually worth the $75? Only if you're going for a complete collection. Now, I did find it kind of humorous that the bowling ball itself looks like a giant meteorite. That's kind of odd. So yeah, I would pass this one up. There are a lot better bowling experiences out there. I referenced Wii Sports earlier. That is probably one of the best bowling games of all time. I also have to mention Atari 2600 and bowling. Just straight up bowling. That game is awesome. And you gotta play it at least once. Wario Land on the Virtual Boy. This is one of the best games on the Virtual Boy. And when people think of the Virtual Boy, this is usually at the top of the list as one of the best games on the system. Now, I know it has a very limited library, But even so, this game is awesome. Yeah, you could play Wario Land on the Game Boy Color or even the Game Boy, but this is its own unique game, and it uses the Virtual Boy and the 3D effects very well. I think you'll have a lot of fun with this one if you are a fan of the series. It's a must-have if you are a Wario fan. The game is roughly going for about $30 or so, and you will have a lot of fun exploring the levels and exploring what Wario can and cannot do. There's a lot of power-ups here, and just searching for treasures is a lot of fun, and secrets too. Also, I just love bulldozing through enemies and blocks, and also using the 3D effects in this game. You have to add this game to your Virtual Boy collection. It is a must-have. Alright guys, another puzzle game on the Virtual Boy, Virtual Lab. I guess puzzle games were all the rage on the Virtual Boy. This was such a strange choice. Now, this is a Japanese exclusive, and it does have a Japanese feel to it, and it makes sense, right? Now, the whole goal of the game is to connect these bubble-like things together and to make loops. Now, these bubble things, I don't even know what to call them. They just look disgusting. They almost look like small or large intestines, like this piece right here. I just don't know what to think about this game. And I just don't understand the fascination with puzzle games on the Virtual Boy. The 3D effects here are bad. They're just terrible. There are none, really. And who are these characters? If you guys know who these characters are, let me know in the comments below. Pass this game up completely. It is very strange, to say the least. Virtual League Baseball. I have played a lot of crappy baseball games in my time, but this might be the worst of its kind. I'm not gonna lie. It is almost like playing an Atari 2600 game, but there are actual better Atari 2600 baseball games out there than this garbage. I hate this game. this might be the worst game on the Virtual Boy. And it's just such a strange choice. And playing the game is almost impossible. Fielding, hitting, pitching, it's all impossible. And the only cool part is when the pitcher throws the ball and the catcher catches the ball. That effect is pretty cool and pretty neat. But I could not get into this game. The only good thing about this game, besides the cool ball effect, is it's only about $15. So it'd be a cheap addition to your Virtual Boy collection. But other than that, I would steer clear of this game. Just play Wii Sports, for crying out loud. Last but not least, well, it's not the worst game on the Virtual Boy. Waterworld, based off the Kevin Costner hit, bomb, Waterworld. Now this is an arcade style game. All you do is attack the smokers. There's different levels. You gotta kill all the smokers, and there's different kinds of smokers. If you're not familiar with a smoker, those are the enemies in the game and in the movie. And you have to save the survivors. This game is really strange and just bizarre and slow and clunky. And it's expensive. I don't recommend this game at all. The music is actually pretty good. But other than that, it's not worth the $135 to add to your collection. I actually really want this game for some reason, but I'm not paying $135 for this piece of crap. Try it once if you're curious, and if you loved the movie, then give this a whirl, I guess. There's also a Super Nintendo game, and I believe a Game Boy game too. I've never actually played the Game Boy game. The Super Nintendo game is, it's meh. So that's going to wrap it up for the Virtual Boy. Do I recommend tracking one of these things down? Not really. Only if you are a hardcore Nintendo fan and you just have to have it, or you're interested about, weird virtual reality technology of the mid-1990s, which it really wasn't virtual reality, by the way. And yeah, it's okay to play once or twice. I have it because I love Nintendo, and I think it's just kind of cool. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of great games on the system. I recommend tracking down Wario World and also Mario Clash. Alright guys, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like this video, and share my content. You can also follow me on Facebook at Retro Tony. Alright guys, thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.
third dimension with its own brain, its own voice, its own legs. There's only one problem. It needs your eyes. Virtual Boy. See it now in 3D.